Okay, so here we are now in the third section of the book, but I'm in the wrong part of the folder. So let me open it here. And so we are in concluding thoughts, concluding remarks, and we are going to go to changing the world. So this is the third section of the book and third section of the concluding remarks. The last section here is on actual conclusions on the whole course. So what were we talking about before, and how does it apply now in concluding remarks? So basically synthesizing all the things together. Changing the world, there is a lot of wisdom in Mark Twain's immortal words. If you always do what you have always done, you will always get what you have always had. At least in the sense of what you had coming. We are in trouble, and everything points toward alarming consequences if we continue on the beaten track. We must, ironically enough, change direction if we are to maintain any substantial part of what we have gained in human and material terms so far. In other words, if we want a sustainable really? I have trouble saying future. In other words, if we want a sustainable future, we need to change a lot. So this is the prop here, which obviously I screwed up and I need to include it. So let me pause for a second and include the figure. I don't know how I skipped it. Sorry about that. So here we are with figure. Why does it disappear? The bottom here with the display and so on tends to disappear, so it now opens to the beginning. So somehow this updated version of PowerPoint is a disaster again. Satya Nadella has lost his way, I think. So we were talking about changing the world in the concluding remarks just a second ago. So we said we must change a lot. So what is the prop here? We have a choice. So we can go towards this warm, dry, hellish world, or we can go into a sustainable world with nice greenery and so on. Does it help you with anything? Well, it's a prop that the author likes. Science has great potential for driving change, however, not directly through traditional science with its emphasis on explaining and understanding observed phenomenon, but by complementing it with design science with its focus on improving experienced challenges. Our task is not to predict the future, our task is to design a future for a sustainable and acceptable world, and then to devote our efforts to bringing that future about. It is, in other words, fundamental that scientists stop making prescriptive suggestions based solely on descriptive studies without taking proper care. Okay, so it is fundamental that scientists stop making prescriptive suggestions based solely on descriptive studies without taking proper care. One of the ideas is, of course, what we learned already in the previous sections: implementations of net zero and sustainability on campuses, to include them in research, innovation, education, student engagement, community engagement, and sending out students as ambassadors of sustainability, which is one of the best ways to get away from just descriptive studies and making prescriptive suggestions based on actual experience of implementing, overcoming barriers, financial and otherwise, right? We'll always need traditional science to explain and understand key phenomena concerning risk, resilience and sustainability, and to use that knowledge to inform the argumentation for the design criteria of artifacts that we need to develop to address our challenges. Vital artifacts that can be both material and conceptual. Traditional science and design science are fundamentally different but connected and equally important in sustainability science. Change entails addressing challenges entails designing artifacts, and designing artifacts entails explaining and understanding phenomena. However, for sustainability science to be able to grasp and address the core challenges of humankind, requires a transformation of the academic structure that currently restricts transdisciplinary research and problem-solving oriented scientific endeavors. While disciplinary research is effective for addressing a wide range of research options, it's fundamentally insufficient to address our contemporary sustainability challenges. So this is a little behind the curve if you ask me, because Earth System Science as a discipline has evolved, and I have a course on Earth System Science for adaptation and mitigation, for example, based on a nice book that came out of a UK from a project they had, and I have had the podcast series on net zero campuses and sustainable campuses, where transdisciplinary research, education, innovation, implementation happen. So this is a little bit behind time in terms of what is needed in terms of transdisciplinary endeavors. One very practical way of addressing sustainability challenges is to develop capacity for resilience, which entails holistic and systematic action that addresses all significant links in the causal chains behind particular capacity gaps. Okay, so you have to identify barriers and gaps and then find the causal chains behind them. Okay, it addresses these gaps on all necessary levels, including developing knowledge, skills, tools and other resources, organization on all levels, rules, regulations and other formal institutions, and norms, values and other formal institutions. We already said this and worth saying again, but again what I think is missing here is on academic campuses, it's not just about transdisciplinary research and problem solving oriented scientific endeavors, but it's about living labs of putting students into problem solving and experiential learning, problem-based learning and project-based learning, learning leadership, learning team building, learning communication, learning championship, and all the ships that we talked about in terms of relationship, stewardship and all these good things, right? It is thus vital to acknowledge dependencies in both the human environment system in question and the capacity development initiative as such, and the logical framework approach presented in this book, which is a useful tool for all this. Moreover, it is essential to not only focus on technical objectives and activities, but also to explicitly consider roles, responsibilities, relationships and skill sets needed for any capacity development initiative to generate sustainable results. So here capacity development is being discussed generally in a societal setting, in a community setting, in real life sustainability development and pathways and resilience, risk management, etc. But the training of this can happen on campus with implementations. Hence, capacity development for resilience is a double design problem with equal importance of objectives, activities and indicators focused on the capacities of the human environment system to perform key functions for its resilience as such, as well as for facilitating local ownership, effective partnership, trustful relationships, etc. And these also can be used as training tools in living labs on campus. That is how capacity development for resilience will become a key tool for sustainable development. Finally, in addition to the changes in society promoted by capacity development initiatives, we are also in urgent need of more fundamental changes of society. This is referred to as social change and entails not only the attitudes, behavior, motivation and choices of individuals, but the physical, environmental, social, cultural, political and economical context these individuals exist in. But these individuals, if they are trained on campus with living labs for these physical, environmental, social, cultural, political and economical contexts in which they will go and work outside, then you would have had people who are trained and experts, and internal partners can be full of these experts instead of just relying on external expertise for making sure that projects and programs succeed and are on time, right? Effective and efficient. Sustainable development requires major changes on macro, meso and micro level of society, and we do not have the centuries or even millennia of earlier transformations to accomplish them. What we need is rapid or perhaps even revolutionary social change towards sustainability. Although it is difficult for us to foresee or even imagine what the resulting society would look like, or even imagine what the resulting society would look like, we must motivate policymakers and practitioners from state, market, civil society as well as the public to make myriad of small changes that accumulate into fundamental social change. Everybody must grasp the precarious situation we are in. Economic incentives must steer us towards sustainable consumption, and sustainable lifestyles must engender real social status. Again, what is missing is that the system itself has to change in producing solutions for everything that is intrinsically carbon neutral, sustainable, circular economy, and so on and so forth. So, to summarize, sustainability science provides a comprehensive transformative framework for addressing the core challenges of humankind. It bridges between science and practice and bases its prescriptive transformative power on solid descriptive research and a coherent conceptual framework. Sustainability science promotes changes in society as well as changes of society with overall objective of promoting resilient communities, cities and societies for a safe and sustainable world. What I would add here is academic campuses, especially higher education, can demonstrate this on the micro scale by implementing net zero and sustainability on campus, making campuses resilient and so on, and then they can fan out into communities, cities and societies to make them resilient for safe and sustainable world as well. Okay, so we'll come back and finally wrap up the entire book with one more podcast then. Okay, so see you in the next podcast.